Hey there, everybody. I want to welcome you here Saturday afternoon to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here to do an episode of my playlist, which is kind of new. It was kind of just a afterthought that I did one a few weeks ago, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this every couple of weeks just so I can keep up with the music that I've been currently listening to. So basically what I do, what we're going to do on this show is I'm going to talk primarily about my playlist, and at the end I'll give you my top 5 favorite albums I'm currently listening to. I'll talk a little bit about what's gone in my playlist recently and what's come out of my playlist recently. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my listening habits, like what I'm doing, like what groups I'm listening to, what's going on, that kind of thing. So first thing we'll start off talking about that last part first. So recently I started doing this online when I was doing my baseball. So I figured a way of listening to my music off of my computer at the same time as I'm doing my baseball, which works really good for me. Sometimes I use my CD player too, but or my stereo system as well, one of those two. But sometimes I just like to put the headphones on while I'm doing my baseball and just listen to an album offline. So recently I was doing Gryphon. I'd listened to the entire studio collection of Gryphon, both the new ones as well. And before that I was doing Chicago. So now I started this week doing Hawkwind. So I've now listened to the first 5 studio albums from Hawkwind, 2 of which I already own, but very interesting music. I like their music quite a bit. I find it catchy. I know it's very similar. They tend to like to be their albums are fairly similar as they go along, and he likes to stay with that one beat quite a bit. But I do like their music quite a bit. So that's what I'm kind of listening to now. I'm going to try and listen my way through the entire Hawkwind collection, which will probably take a while because I think there's like 27 albums or something like that in the collection. They've been one of those bands that since they started back in 1970, they've been pretty consistently putting out albums pretty regularly for the entire career. And I guess Dave Brock is probably the only one that was with them for the entire time period that they were doing that. Another band that I've gotten quite a bit of interest in now and listening to their stuff is a band called Overhead, which I've been listening to their stuff as well. But I've kind of more focused on the Hawkwind, so I think I'll stick with that until I'm done. I generally like to listen to one of them, and then I've been spending some time doing the ranking the albums, which requires me to listen to 4 albums, which is a fair bit of albums. Generally, my listening habits are that I will listen to albums while I'm doing stuff around the house. I may listen to them while I'm driving. I will do it while I'm doing my baseball. So I try to get as many albums as I can in. So for me, it's usually a minimum of about 3 full albums a day, and a maximum is could be quite a bit, but generally speaking, maximum is about 5 to 6. On occasion, I might get 7 albums in a day. That's a lot. It's like 7 hours worth of time when you really think about it. Unless they're like older albums, and you might get a few extra in there instead. But generally speaking, yeah. So if you do the math, that's anywhere from about 21 to somewhere around 35 albums a week, which is a lot of albums. I can't imagine listening to more than that in a week, unless you're doing it as work, where you're actually sitting down and you're paid to sit there and listen to albums every day. Yeah, it would be tough to do more than 35 a week, I think. Anyways, that's what my listening habits are as far as as far as my normal routines go. The other routine I have, of course, is that I try to mix in certain groups. So if I'm listening to the Hawkwind stuff, I may do 1 or 2 of them a day, or 1 a day. And if I'm doing the ranking of the albums, I tend to do 2 of those at a time. So I may do a couple days where I'll do 2 in a row, like maybe on a Monday or maybe on a Wednesday. But I try to get them done fairly early in the week so that I can get, when it's come time to do the video, I've listened to all 4 of them and I'm ready to go. So usually I do them in pairs, yeah. So he gives me 4, so I may do 2 and then 2 another day. And the other thing, of course, is that any albums that I'm doing for the TV, for the channel, like my classic look back at a classic rock album, I generally like to listen to the entire album again when I'm doing it. Same thing with what's new. I listen to it and I pick out things in it that I really like. Those 2 albums have to go in. And Ben's album challenge, if it happens to be out that week, I'll have to do that one as well. And then in any other odd thing that might come up that needs me to listen to it as well, those are the main ones. And then of course my playlist. Now I generally try to get anywhere from 1 to 3 of those albums per day, so that the entire list gets done. At least once a week the entire list goes through. And then so that's it. And then anything new that I've bought that I can fit in there somewhere, I try to get that into. I have quite a bit of stuff that on this rack here that I haven't even listened to yet that I bought. Most of it's fairly recent, some of it's a little bit older, and then whatever's new that's coming up too. Okay, so that pretty much gives you a little bit of what I'm doing as far as my listening goes. Then we have my playlist, which is this list here. You'll see some of them are empty because I got them down here. So since I did this last 2 weeks ago, the only album that's come out of it has been my Yes album. This one, which I'm just going to pull over so you can see it. This one I pulled out of my playlist. It was right at the top. Yes's Mirrors to the Sky. Mirror to the Sky, yeah. So this was on that. It was on there maybe, I'm going to say it was probably, sorry, tried to put it in the wrong spot. I would say that it was probably in the playlist, at least 6 or 7 weeks. Pretty much, I think it was probably 7 weeks it was in the playlist. That's fairly, 7 months, sorry. It's in the playlist about 7 months, which is, for most of the good albums, the ones that I end up really liking, they generally get anywhere between 6 months and a year in there. Any of them in that category generally end up being like ones, or eventually some of them will end up as masterpieces. The ones that come out a little bit earlier, generally they come out early for a couple reasons. One, they've been in there before and I get bored with them a little quicker than I would have. Or they're new albums that are like very frontal albums. For me, a frontal album is an album that catches your attention right away and you're listening to it a lot. But it burns out quickly. That the Rolling Stones' Hackney Diamonds was like that for me. I listened to it a lot for about 5 or 6 weeks, and then it just slowly burned out, like a Blue Star almost, right? And then other albums that might come out of there quickly are albums that I initially liked, but for some reason they didn't have any. They kind of, after listening to them for a bit, I decided I didn't like them as much as I thought. That sometimes happens too. It doesn't happen as often as it used to. I'm usually a little better at that now. So that album came out and was replaced in the playlist by this album, which some of you will know and some of you may not know. This is The Chronicles of Father Robbins. This is volume number 1. Really good. Excellent album. When I get new albums, they tend to go to the top of my list of albums to go into my playlist fairly quickly, and then the other ones just keep rotating up until their turn comes, and they're in this stack here. But this one just went right to the top because it's a new album and I wanted to play it right away. So it's going to go in. It just went into my playlist today, and we'll see how long it's going to stay. I have enjoyed this one. I haven't got a chance to listen to the other 2 volumes of it yet. I think they're all out now. I think one of them will definitely be something I review fairly soon as well. So anyways, this one has gone into my list. Can't actually go on the shelf because it's a little bit too big. Actually, it could. I think it would fit, actually. Yeah, it fits. It's the King Crimson one doesn't quite fit into the slot, so I just leave it on the side there. And so that brings me to what my top 5 albums are of the week that are in my playlist. If I'm ranking them according to how I like them. So I've decided to just give you the list accordingly. It's the same 5 albums that were on the last one, except for they're moved around a little bit. So coming in number 5 this week will be Stormwatch from Jethro Tull. I think it's been in the playlist maybe about 3 months now. 3, possibly 4 months. You've got Uriah Heep's... Oh, sorry. Stormwatch was number 1. I've done this backwards. I just realized it as soon as I went to it. It's Broadsword and the Beast was number 5. It's been in the list about 3 or 4 months, sorry. Good album. Doing well. I don't think it's doing as well as the other one, because I think this one kind of sounds a little bit more like Crest of a Knave, and even though I like that sound by Jethro Tull, I don't like it as much as the older stuff. Next album up is this one, Hawkwind's Warriors at the Edge of Time. This one's really growing on me. I think this album is going to move right up there and challenge for that top spot, not too distant future. It's been on the list the longest of these 5 albums. I think it's been like 5 months or so. Then we got this one, The Seventh House by IQ. It's kind of dropped a little bit here. I think I may have burned it out just a slight bit, but a really good album. Number 3, probably around about 5 months as well. Next up is Chaos and Order, number 2. This one's continuing to rise. This is such a good album. Actually, killer album. I like it. Been on the playlist maybe 3 to 4 months. It's just hitting its stride now. I think it could take over as my favorite album at some point really soon. And then, of course, number 1 is Stormwatch, which you've seen earlier because I screwed it up. Really good. This is that classic sound, very similar in sound. A lot of similarity between this and Songs from the Wood, which is my favorite Jethro Tull album. I think this one just makes me really feel that way. Plus, I just did a recent episode on my favorite drummers, in which Barrymore Barlow was there, and this was the last album he played on. So yeah, number 1 right now. I think it's been number 1 for at least a month, probably more than a month, maybe a month and a half. Been on the charts, or it's been on the charts, I keep saying that, but it's on the playlist. Been on my playlist at least 4, maybe 5 months, somewhere in there. Anyways, excellent album. Highly recommended. If you're getting into Jethro Tull, this is one of the ones I would recommend. Okay, so that's it for my playlist for the week. For this week, probably come back every second week with this, so it'll be a bi-monthly or bi-weekly or whatever you want to call it episode. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. Any comments about the albums I've talked about, or what I do, or you might have a suggestion for a listening habit that I hadn't thought of that might be useful to me. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit the notification bell, and we will see you next couple weeks from now on my playlist. So take care and have a good one. Bye.